When it comes to U.S. presidential elections, the economy is one of the most powerful factors shaping the outcome. And one of the most powerful factors shaping our ability to keep making these videos is you guys supporting us, so please do us a favor and smash those like and subscribe buttons right now. Again and again, we've seen voters head to the polls with their wallets in mind, casting ballots based on their own financial experiences and how they perceive the health of the country's economy. But why does the economy play such a decisive role in determining who becomes president? In this video, we'll explore the reasons why economic conditions can make or break a presidential campaign, why voters prioritize economic performance, and how candidates either benefit from or are harmed by the state of the economy at election time. The saying, "It's the economy, stupid," has become a famous catchphrase in American political discourse. Coined during Bill Clinton's 1992 presidential campaign, it succinctly captures the central role that the economy plays in voters' decision-making process. Research shows that voters tend to reward incumbents or their party when the economy is doing well and punish them when it's doing poorly. The reason is simple. Voters care deeply about their own financial well-being, and when the economy is growing, jobs are plentiful, and wages are rising, they're more likely to feel satisfied with the direction of the country. Conversely, when the economy is struggling, characterized by unemployment, inflation, or stagnant wages, voters often blame the sitting president or the incumbent party. Economic issues affect nearly every aspect of voters' lives, from job security and income to the cost of healthcare, education, and housing. The state of the economy directly impacts how people live and how they perceive their future prospects. When times are good, voters are more likely to trust the current leadership to keep things stable and continue on a positive trajectory. But when people feel financially insecure, if they've lost a job, seen their savings erode, or faced rising costs of living, there's a tendency to look for change. Elections are often a referendum on the incumbent's handling of the economy, and when people feel their financial future is at risk, they often turn to candidates who promise a fresh approach. A key factor in this dynamic is how voters experience the economy personally. While broad indicators like GDP growth or the stock market might suggest a strong economy, it's voters' day-to-day experiences that really influence their decisions at the ballot box. If people are struggling to make ends meet, they're less likely to care about abstract economic figures. A booming stock market might benefit investors, but if the average voter is struggling with stagnant wages, rising healthcare costs, or unaffordable housing, they're more likely to feel the economy is not working for them. This disconnect can spell trouble for incumbent politicians who tout strong economic data without addressing the financial struggles of ordinary people. Historical examples illustrate how the economy shapes election outcomes. Take the 1992 election, for example. George H.W. Bush entered the campaign season with high approval ratings after leading the U.S. through the Gulf War. However, a recession in the early 1990s caused his popularity to plummet as voters became more concerned about their economic prospects. Bill Clinton's campaign zeroed in on economic issues, focusing on middle-class voters' financial struggles and emphasizing the need for change. Clinton's slogan, "It's the economy, stupid," resonated with voters who felt the pinch of the recession, helping him secure a victory. More recently, we saw a similar dynamic in the 2020 election. Amid the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. experienced a sharp economic downturn, with millions losing their jobs and businesses shuttering across the country. Donald Trump's presidency, which had previously been bolstered by a strong economy and low unemployment, suddenly faced a crisis as the pandemic wreaked havoc on economic stability. Joe Biden's campaign focused on the administration's handling of the pandemic and its economic fallout, positioning himself as a candidate who would build back better. The economic turmoil caused by the pandemic undoubtedly played a role in Trump's defeat, as many voters were looking for leadership that could address both the health and economic crises. One of the most important economic indicators that influences voters is the unemployment rate. High unemployment typically signals that the economy is struggling, and voters who are out of work, or who know someone who is, often turn against the incumbent president. When people lose jobs, it affects their financial security, mental health, and ability to provide for their families, all of which can lead to a sense of desperation or frustration with current leadership. Even if an economic downturn isn't the fault of the president, voters tend to hold the sitting leader accountable for their financial pain, expecting government officials to address the problem and restore stability. Inflation is another economic factor that can sway elections. When inflation rises, the cost of living goes up, and voters feel the sting in their wallets. Whether it's higher prices for groceries, gas, or housing, inflation erodes purchasing power, making it harder for people to maintain their standard of living. If inflation is high leading up to an election, the incumbent party often faces an uphill battle, as voters may associate the current administration with the rising cost of goods and services. Historically, inflation has been a key issue in several elections, and candidates who can offer solutions to bring prices down often gain support. There's also the role of economic inequality. While overall economic growth can benefit a country, rising inequality can create resentment and fuel populist movements. When voters perceive that the wealthy are benefiting disproportionately from economic growth while the middle and lower classes struggle, they may demand change. This dynamic was evident in the 2016 election, where economic inequality and wage stagnation helped fuel Donald Trump's populist message. Trump's promises to bring back jobs, particularly in struggling industries like manufacturing, resonated with working-class voters who felt left behind by globalization and technological change. Similarly, Bernie Sanders gained significant support in the Democratic primaries by focusing on income inequality and the concentration of wealth at the top. Another important element is consumer confidence. This is a measure of how optimistic or pessimistic people are about the economy and their own financial future. When consumer confidence is high, people are more likely to spend money, invest, and make big purchases like homes and cars. But when consumer confidence is low, people tend to cut back on spending, which can further weaken the economy. Voters who are pessimistic about the future are more likely to vote for change, seeking leadership that can restore their faith in the economy. Politicians often try to boost consumer confidence by emphasizing their economic plans and promising prosperity. It's important to note that while the economy is a critical factor in presidential elections, it's not the only one. Social issues, foreign policy, and the candidate's personal appeal also matter. However, the economy often becomes the central issue because it's so personal and immediate. Voters may care deeply about social or foreign policy issues, but their financial well-being tends to weigh most heavily when they cast their votes. For many people, their own economic situation is the lens through which they judge all other issues. In conclusion, the economy holds immense sway over U.S. presidential elections because it directly affects voters' lives. From unemployment and inflation to consumer confidence and inequality, economic conditions shape how people feel about the future and whether they trust the current leadership to guide the country in the right direction. While candidates can influence the conversation with their policies and promises, the state of the economy often dictates the outcome. As long as voters continue to prioritize their financial well-being, the economy will remain a decisive factor in who becomes president.